What's up, big
What's
guy?
up, man?
How you doing?
Good, brother.
Good.
Hey, you got me going live here. This is cool. I like it.
This is cool. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. This Instagram live thing, it works about 50% of the time.
Is that right?
Like, yeah, like half the time I like invite you, and you just can't join. And so for whatever happens,
You
but
know, I see people go live, and usually it says like one of the guys I see go live a lot is Green, and it says
yeah,
like ask to join them live, and you can click
right,
a button. It always says you can click a button and you can actually join them live, which is kind of
yeah, yeah.
which
But
should be.
sometimes sometimes people will ask because that happens to me all the time, and it just doesn't. The technology is always like whatever, but. Dude, I don't want to take up a ton of your time. The truth is, I've just been enjoying hopping on here and picking people's brains about, I titled this live Millionaire Real Estate Investing.
Yeah.
Um, Daniel, you're so unique, man. Like, of, how many interviews of millionaires have you done in the last, I don't know, last 4 or 5 years?
Oh, dude. Well, it's interesting. Well, if you say official recorded interviews, we're like at 40. You know, guys that
Wow.
are net worth. Well, these guys that are net worth from a deca-millionaire. So the 728 show, which is what we have in
Yeah.
GoBundance, it's 10 million to, we interviewed Richard Branson, which is what I think $3 billion, $4 billion, or whatever it might be. But so officially recorded interviews, it's been 40 or so. But shoot, when you're around a bunch of GoBundance guys, it's like an interview process anyway. So and it's like thousands of guys that we've over 10 years of being, in that world that you just get exposure to, which is really cool to be able to dive in. And there's so many different ways that these guys built wealth, and it's exciting. It's exciting just to talk to them
It's
about
like you're like the modern day Napoleon Hill, man.
it.
Like Napoleon Hill, his whole job was just to figure out like why are some people successful, why do some people fail, and like here you are having, I mean, literally thousands of interviews, and you've interviewed 40, deca millionaires. I think that's what you said. So $10+ million net worth,
Yeah.
and at the top of that, at the top of that is Richard Branson when it comes to wealth. Well, dude, I'd be curious, like amongst all those interviews, if you had to boil those interviews down to like a couple of key things that makes someone not happy. I'll ask that question next because I'm curious about that. But like just successful, like someone who makes it, who gets the net worth. What would you boil it? What are a couple of the key things that you would boil
You
down to?
know what? Like talking to so many people that have achieved wealth, it's funny. It's like I see things in a form of like music, right? Where it's all the same certain notes and patterns, and you're like, man, this is a pattern, this is a note. And
Mm,
every book that you down to the Bible, right? Where you read some of the wisdom books, and you're like, man, it's just a cadence that happens, and
right.
it's always that way.
Proverbs.
Yeah, regardless of how many people you interview, you're like, okay, this is pattern 135. Or this is four, and it's interesting how like success is never the same, but it rhymes so much. But one of the things I think that people do, and the birth of even the 728 show, was the guys that and gals that achieved financial independence. They did it because they chased it with massive discipline and patience.
Mm,
And they didn't. A lot of us, like a lot of, and I'm guilty of it too, where we overestimate what we could do in a year, underestimate what we could build over a decade, right? And so we lose hope of it because we lack clarity on what that looks like. And so when we started doing the 728 show, it happened because we were interviewing like just privately a bunch of millionaires that are in abundance, right? And I can't tell you how many conversations we had and I had with people where like guys worth $4 or $5 million, right? You're like, man, I reached this millionaire status. I'm here in abundance, and I'm like, and they got this look in their face of like tiredness,
mm,
and so we started peeling that back, and we're like, they're starting to chase different things. They're running away from something instead of running towards something. And I think the lie
mm.
that these guys get told is like, look, you become a millionaire and your life gets easy. And what happens is you become a millionaire and it just gets incredibly more difficult. You just tend to deal with it better. And it ends up being not a game of saying yes, it's a game of saying yes to the right things and no to everything else that doesn't align to that. And so when we started doing the 728 show, it was because of that. We're like, man, we saw so many guys pivot at the wrong time. Instead of
Wow.
staying patiently disciplined in what they were doing in their mastery, and getting clarity on what would get them to 10 figures, to 8 figures, that 10
Right.
million mark. And they were creating a bunch of things in the stakes because they were running away from something because they felt this burden that was heavy, $4 or $5 million. You don't have a condo around you, you're still building it. And at 10 million, you start defying gravity. Now, you don't completely defy it, but, like I weigh 200 pounds, I feel 200 pounds on me. Right. But with a business owner, you're like, okay, you have an extra 1,000 pounds on your back. And you're like, look, I
Wow.
thought, I'd be a billionaire. And I'm like, I thought my life would be easy. Now you're carrying this, 10,000 pound or 1,000 pound weight on your back. And you're like, man, I thought this was going to get a lot easier. And it doesn't. But once you get to that 10 million, you start defying gravity. You start feeling only your weight. You're like, okay, because you get the right people in place where they start carrying some of those weights for you.
Yeah.
And, as you go into 20, 25 million, then you defy gravity. There's just a gravitational pull to your wealth, to your knowledge. Yeah. We say that the thing that compounds faster than money is relationships. Those relationships are compounding.
Wow.
But that was really like why we started the 728 show, to really keep the guys and gals that were listening to it that were worth that, million, 2, 3, 4, 5 million net worth, keep them patiently disciplined.
Mm.
And then really getting clarity, on who they needed to be to get them to that next level, because what got you to that 5 million mark might be holding you back. And there's a death of slaying the dragon is what we call it. It's 7 layers of this wealth building tool, is slaying the dragon and saying, look, I appreciate the hustle. I appreciate the scarcity mindset. I appreciate the drive, the trauma that you've had in the past
Yes.
that got you here. And you honor that person and you say, thank you for getting here, but you're no longer serving me. I'm going to keep 20% of the person that I am today, design the next version of myself. And you almost have to put a gun to that ego and that persona, pull the trigger, make changes. And so time and time, that happens a lot, but it's a lot easier to do that when you're running towards this greater vision instead of running from this responsibility of 1,000-pound weight on your back. So it's really cool to see, and there's conversations. Like I had a conversation with the general, he's an anesthesiologist, making $500,000-$600,000 a year, and talking about a bunch of different investments he wanted to do. And I looked at him and I said, dude, what would happen if you invested that back in your business? Like you're trying to take $400,000-$500,000 that you have and make it into millions.
Right.
But one of the most important things that you could do is like a cash flow in business, right? So what can you do in your business so that way you could generate that cash flow in your own business, in your own skill set, and your connections? And somebody like Cody Sanchez says this a lot. Cash flow in businesses are one of the most important things.
Yeah.
So, just giving them a couple of pointers and having them look back at himself to say, look, you're running away from this anesthesia practice when you built something beautiful, instead of honoring it and saying, look, what about those decisions are holding you back, and what kind of decisions you have to make in the future to propel your future. And he ended up making a couple of changes, getting a couple of contracts, having other anesthesiologists, and literally, like, I think it's been 3 years since I've had that conversation. I just talked to the guy last week, and his revenue went from $500,000 a year. He'll probably make $3 to $4 million this year alone, just in his anesthesia practice. By the simple change of not running away from something, right? And so, anyway, so
Dude,
I
that's
think to answer
huge.
your question, it's just chasing it with like great discipline and patience, and then having clarity on where you're going.
Brother, I feel like that was such a beautiful answer to that question. I feel like you just laid out like a blueprint to get from like someone who's successful to 10 million. Like and then you walked through that path and gave me goosebumps, man, a couple of times, because I can relate to a lot of those steps in that journey, in my own path to wealth, my own path to becoming a millionaire, my own path to that. And so it's so beautiful. One of the newest, hottest books out right now in the entrepreneur world is this book called 10x is easier than 2x. Have you read it yet?
I have. I read the manuscript before it came out.
Oh shit. Wow. Okay, that's awesome. And I haven't read it, to be fair, but I was on a podcast yesterday, and the guy he was saying that in the book they say like what the biggest killer of your dreams, and he started like that, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. I was like getting ready to write it down, and he's like, the biggest killer of your dreams is pursuing like, and I wish I could find exactly how he said it. He said it way better than, but it's like is pursuing lesser goals.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I kind of feel like you're saying that same thing. It's like at some point something has to die. At some point
Yeah.
you have to let go of the thing that's good for like the amazing thing, right? Or for the
Yeah.
thing you really want in your life. It's really, really, really beautiful, man. I want to just ask you one more question. And again, I know we were just going to jump on here for a couple of minutes. So I feel like I don't get to talk to you that often, man, but like I feel like this could go on for an hour.
I love you, bro. And you're actually living it right now because I see it, man. I think you're doing changes in
Thanks.
your business
Yeah.
where you're like, damn, you built this amazing business and you gotta, man, we almost have we need to have a memorial service for your previous life because you're making massive changes, right?
Yeah.
And I could see you being part of GoBundance. Like I could see your trajectory of where you're doing and what you're, the goals that you have. And it's funny because you said the right thing, right? Like, with in the military, you don't win the war on the shots you take. You win the war on the shots you decide not to, right? So what, because that the fatality rate of chasing the wrong things is hard. So, and you see
Yeah.
that you're like, look, if you want to get certain layers of success, say to get get a great paying job. Well, there's a million different things you can do to get a great paying job. For you, it might be $100,000 a year, right? But then as you start getting to say, you know what, I want to make 500,000 a year. I want to build a business. I want to be a professional athlete. There's less things that you have to do
Right.
consistently. It's not an add-on game. It's so part of like
Right.
Ben's book, the 10x factor of the right things, and saying, look, if you focus on, look, you got 100 different ways to do this, and this is what a lot of the 7 to 8 people that I've interviewed say, is they've chased like passionate things, and it's maybe 2 to 3 things that they become really, really great at, and they suck at everything else.
Wow.
And if my wife would be on this, she's like, I like know 3 or 4 things really well, and then I am a moron at everything else. I don't know cigars, I don't know whiskeys, I don't know golf, I don't know all this other stuff, but the stuff that I know, I chase it with great discipline and passion.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that are trying to do everything for everybody, and they lose themselves, you know?
Dude, it's so good. It's so good. So I want to ask you this, man. So you've had this interview, you've interviewed these 40 deca-millionaires, you've interviewed Richard Branson, you've interviewed thousands of millionaires. What is a consistent theme for someone that reaches that level of success, let's call it monetary success, let's call it wealth, and stays happy, man? And like, cause like in my generation, I'm a millennial, so in my generation, one of the things that we like, I'll talk to my friends about becoming wealthy and making money and going grinding hard. And I swear to you, like one of the first objections I get to this wealth journey is like, oh yeah, but I'd rather be happy, or I want to play too much, or I want to, and like that's kind of like almost how my generation thinks about this model. And so I'm just curious, like, A, have you seen it be possible? People
Yeah.
can achieve mega wealth and still be happy, and if so, in your interviews, what have you seen maybe be some of those common themes, or even from your own life, those common themes of those people who are actually happy and also have the wealth and the money to back it up as well? I'm really curious anything stands out to you. And I did not prep you for this question. I'm just kind of
No,
like firing from the hip here.
and the thing that comes to my heart right away is like the Confucius quote of the desiring less. Like true happiness is desiring less, right? As
Mm.
like for us, and I don't know if you did this with us in 3 years ago. A couple of Gomendas guys, we took a Yale course of happiness. And it was an
No, I
amazing
didn't.
course. It talks about hedonic adaptation, right? We've built these amazing lives, right? And if you look back, people build these amazing lives, and we tend to find our own misery within the blessings that God has given us. Like we
Wow.
find our own misery in it. It's hedonic adaptation. You live too long on the beach, you start complaining about the sand, right? And it's like what I see with some of the people that I interview is initially it starts with I need to build this wealth. I need this abundance. But it becomes with like when you need it, they're like committing to suffer for it, right? But the really switch is when they say, you know what, I don't need this, I want it. Like I want
Mm.
it. It's not that I need it, I want it. And you
Yeah.
chase it with that kind of pursuit, it's different
Wow.
than need, because at that point you're sacrificing your happiness, you're doing all this other stuff. And a lot of it is surrounding yourself with a tribe and a peer group that pull that out of you, right?
Yes.
That allow you to live in that abundant mindset. And we say that, if you life in gratitude, like if you're naturally just a grateful person, uh,
Yes.
you're gonna be doors of opportunities will open up for you. You'll see more opportunity. But if you live life in
Mm.
servitude, it kicks the freaking door down, right? And that's where the thing is like, look, I don't need it. I want it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to serve that vision. I'm going to serve people in a manner where the opportunities just come tenfold, right? And
Wow.
that's what you see with a lot of the people that are going through their journey. And initially, it doesn't start that way, but they go in and they make that shift, and they say, it's not something that I need. I want it, and I'm going to pursue it with that kind of process. And then they fall in love with not the end result. They fall in love with the progress of growth,
Mm.
right? When we were racing Ironman together, and
Yes.
when we did that, like, dude, I didn't love it. Like, I didn't love it. I'm like, it sucked, man. But the thing is, it's like, I didn't need to do that Ironman. I wanted to. And because I wanted to, I got up every freaking morning and drove
Right.
to work to do it. Right. And so we
Wow.
take our bodies to this extreme level of pain, like because you want to do it with that much more
Mm.
passion. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I was in love with the end of that Iron Man as well. I was like, I'm so glad this is over.
right.
But that was a fun time, man. And I get what you're saying. There's a nuanced difference between I have to have this and I will go at all. I will win at all costs. And sometimes you win at all
Yeah.
costs. Or I want this because it's enjoyable and it's fun. My wife will tell me that. She'll be like, "You work so hard." I'm like, "I don't think I'm working. Like, I'm hanging with Daniel Del Rio. Like, this is work. We're like talking real estate. Like, this is awesome." But man, that's beautiful. Well, brother, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on here. This is cool. We'll do this in a longer format sometime, but I just wanted to have this little chat. We'll post this later for people to watch and kind of this is absolute gold. I took some notes on it myself. Thank you for bringing the fire. Thank you for bringing the value. Thank you for being a faith-based person. Thanks for just for doing so much for me and being a friend. I really appreciate you, brother.
I love you, Sam, man. Anything I can do to help you, man, or you know that I'm always cheering you on, man. I'm cheering
There
for
you
you,
are.
brother.
Thank you,
Admiration.
man. All right. Yep.
See ya.
Have a great
Bye.
day. Peace. God bless. Bye.